Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lisa Martin with Silver Spring Town Center, and we are so happy and proud to be selling Black History Month with this wonderful community of Lyttonsville. We have it's an amazing program that has come together that Pat Tyson, who's one of our board members of Silver Spring Town Center, is spearheading and working alongside her longtime community members. So we'll be presenting Lyttonsville, a treasured community in Silver Spring, and oral history discussion in just a moment. I just want to tell you about some other wonderful events we have coming up with SSTCI. Tomorrow we have a comedy show at 8 o'clock. It's called Our Most Loved Comics, and that's also on Zoom. All of our events are virtually presented on Zoom right now. And then other Black History Month programs we have coming up is next Monday, the 21st at 7. We have Honoring African American Luminaries Through Painting with Fabric with artist Mahira Kara. And she does amazing work of the Obamas and Stacey Abrams and all kinds of people from African American history and modern day luminaries. And Maya Angelou, she's depicted as well. So join us next Monday if you can. And on Wednesday, February 23rd, we have Chained to History, Slavery and U.S. Foreign Relations to 1865 with author GW Professor Stephen Brady. That's a book talk next Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we have puppeteer Schroeder Cherry and friends, sculpting, design, and character development in the creation of puppets and oral traditions inspired by the African diaspora. That's Thursday, February 24th at 7:30. And he always gives a really great, lively presentation. It's for all ages, but kids are especially welcome as well. Poetry gathering in celebration of Black History Month with poet and SSTCI President Brenda Bunting will be on Friday, February 25th at 7. So that's always an inspiring time as well. We have some wonderful poets in our community who do wonderful work. All of our events are made possible with generous support from Montgomery County, United Therapeutics, the Arts and Humanities of Montgomery County, Maryland State Arts, Montgomery College, and many others, including this month's Black History Month sponsors, Global Sustainable Partnerships, the Healthcare Initiative Foundation, and the Black Physicians Healthcare Network. And from Global Sustainable Partnerships, we have Kimberly Fogg with us. Hi, Kim. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Happy Black History Month.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I'm so excited to be one of the sponsors. We're just so excited to be here. And I just wanted to say a few words. My organization is doing COVID outreach in our Black and Brown communities, and I am partnering with the Black Physicians Healthcare Network. And I just want to tell you that they are an amazing organization of Black doctors who are doing all kinds of screenings for free. Any Black person in Montgomery County that needs dental work, that needs mental or emotional support, that needs any kind of family physician, you can always reach out to the Black Physicians Healthcare Network, because they are doing all these services for free for our communities. And so I just want people to know that, because a lot of times people don't have access to healthcare, which has been part of the problematic history of inequalities in our communities. And so this is just like a wonderful initiative. I will put it in the chat. Again, my name is Kimberly Fogg. Thank you so much for allowing me to say a few words. And I'm looking forward to this presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim. We're so happy to have you sponsoring Black History Month, and you're doing such great work for the community. Now we will get started with the program. Lyttonsville, a treasured community in Silver Spring, an oral history discussion hosted by Patricia Tyson. It is featuring several area residents that Pat will introduce. Pat, as you know, is a wonderful all-around person. She's so active in the community and various organizations, including on our SSTCI's board. But she's especially such a champion of her community of Lyttonsville and has done really great work. And they are now going to share their stories. So, and it's, I can't tell you enough how much feedback I've gotten from all the people who've registered, who are so excited about this program. And we had to expand our Zoom subscription to accommodate everyone because it was so popular, because Pat and Charlotte Cofield, who you see here, they're so well loved people in our community. So let's hand over the mic to Pat Tyson to get us started. Take it away.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is so great to be here. I think this is going to be a wonderful evening for all of us. And even though I've been here, my sister, both of us have been here more than 70 years. The residents that you're going to hear from formerly in our time, they too are the same range era of Lyttonsville. I have to say that all of we're honoring our parents and our grandparents and others who came before us, because we learned an awful lot about life through our situation when we lived here in Lyttonsville. So I'm going to ask each resident to say their name. If you have a nickname you want to tell us, we'd like that too. But you introduce yourself, and we will, then I will, the former residents, and then we'll go to present residents that are here in Lyttonsville. We were an African-American community, but never without a couple of white families among us. And so I'm just going to start off and ask that our former residents say their name and something about themselves. Shall we start with, I'll start with my sister, Teresa.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Teresa. Last name was Tyson. I'm married at Saxton. There isn't a lot I can say, except it was a very rich life to grow up in Lyttonsville. I went on to have a career with the federal government. I'm now retired and living in Burtonsville. But I like to come back to the community and see the few familiar faces that are there. And also, unfortunately, we only see each other when someone passes. Mm-hmm. We go to funerals, but it's good to be on tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of my former fellow residents of the community.
Yeah. And we have Reverend Ella Redfield. Ella, would you be next?
Good evening. I'm Ella Redfield. I am a lifetime resident of Silver Spring. I've lived in Lyttonsville for probably for about 18, 19 years or more, but I am still a resident of Silver Spring, but not in Lyttonsville. I am the executive minister and pastor of the Zion Baptist Church Northside. I am also a former employee of the Department of Treasury. I worked for the Department of Treasury for 26 years, and then I went into full-time ministry.
Thank you, Ella. Okay, let's just say that neighbors, former neighbors, you just mentioned your name and your family.
Hi, I guess that's us.
Oh,
Ed
that's
and Anna, Ed and Anna Marshall. Uh, I've I came in this neighborhood in 1981, having just returned from Germany after a 5-year deployment. And I tell you, I want to give a big shout out to Pat and Miss Schofield, because I tell you, the apple really didn't fall far from the tree. Because when I came in here, I was schooled or more on the history of this community by the old patriarch. Uh, that is Mr. George Shackelford and Mr. Tyson, Lawrence Tyson. It kept me abreast of everything in this community. So now, after living here for 41 years and have deployed to the Gulf, my family's here, my children grew up here. I could tell you what a wonderful neighborhood this is. We don't want to go anywhere else. You could say we're planted here. Don't plan to go anywhere unless you cut us down like a tree. But this is where we're going to be. you know, I like the neighborhood. It's integrated. As a matter of fact, I came here because at that time I worked right behind here, the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, right here on Forest Glen, the annex. So it was just a trot to work, so to speak. And being military, I like to exercise. I had the Georgetown Trail right behind me. So everything was like on a platter. So I'm saying I've watched this neighborhood evolve from watching the high schoolers built the cul-de-sac across the street, and we just love it here. Don't want to go anywhere. Don't want to be anywhere. Don't care what they say. Just don't. The only little hiccups I would say, if is the little instances of vandalism that come in the neighborhood from time to time, and we know that's not people from the neighborhood. Because one thing I can say, the neighbors are very alert, and if for lack of a better word, neighborly. They're very neighborly. Look out for each other and so forth. So retired from the military, my wife and I, but now I retired from the army, the military, but now I'm in God's army. I'm into the ministry. So God bless you, and it's really good to be here. I don't know if I don't want to say a little bit. I don't want, give somebody in the ministry a mic and you got a problem. But I don't know if I want to say a little bit.
I'm blessed as well to be here. And one of the greatest thing is meeting all the people that we've met, especially the Shackelfords. They were so wonderful to me. And Daisy, his wife, would teach me to can goods, tomatoes and strawberries and peaches that they had in their yard. And it was very sweet of her. And of course, there was a and Ken and Susan, and they were awesome people. And we just always had good neighbors and continue to do so with the present neighbors right now. Let's just love them. Thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you. Skippy. Skippy.
My name is Dwight Crutchfield, better known as Skippy. I was born and lived in Linden till I was 17 and moved to DC, but I always loved Linden and always will be my home. And regardless where I go or whatever, I would always let people know that I am from Lyttonsville. And I worked at Maryland University for 33 years, retired, and still live in Silver Spring, and just grateful and thankful for that community, because I realized that without that community, where would I be? I'm a man that came from a small community, but grows to be a proud and a big man, because from nothing to something. And I just thank God that I had not only loving family, but when I say family, everybody in that community, we was family, and we
Amen.
always will remain family. So I thank God for each and every one of y'all.
Amen.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Skippy. I can't see all the names of people here, but if there's anybody here that was here in the 60s or the 50s or the 40s, would you?
Yeah, all of us.
We had a number of people. I believe Linda is on. Um, Linda Lee.
Probably muted.
She's probably
She's
muted.
muted.
Oh, can she, does she know how to unmute herself?
Where is she? Yeah. If she can unmute herself, I can spotlight her. If I can find her. Linda Lee. Oh, here she is. Is Linda Lee coming on?
Linda? Linda? Well, maybe, you know, in the presentation part, she will have worked out.
Right. Okay. And then I think, so were there any other longtime residents who wanted to introduce themselves?
Yes. Are there any others?
I'll introduce myself. Hi, everyone. This is Lori Ann.
Good.
Yeah, that's me, sister.
Hi. You know, she mentioned, you know, residents from the 60s, so that would have to be me. So I was born later in Linden in the 60s, and, you know, born and grew up in the house that my granddaddy built. And in that house, we grew up with aunts and uncles, my mom and my aunts and my uncles, and my grandmother was a Stewart, and my grandfather was a Williams. And so we had connections with many families in the neighborhood. Anna Perry is actually a cousin of mine because from the Williams side, my grandfather was an uncle of theirs. And then my grandmother, the Stewart, was related to many of the Stewarts in Linden. And so, and from those families, as mostly everybody knows, there were many families in the neighborhood. So we're all connected somehow. But in the 60s, I grew up. And so by the time we came along, there was further integration. And so we had the opportunity to go to schools that were integrated, although we experienced much going outside of the neighborhood and now interacting with, you know, neighbors from a diverse population. So, but it was great. I loved living in a neighborhood, being able to run up and down the street, feeling safe, running around with friends, cousins, very, very close-knit neighborhood, but also treasured the fact that everyone in that neighborhood worked so hard for us, you know, for the younger generations, and instilled a great sense of spirituality, a great sense of, you know, the requirement to get good education, and just to be good people. And because they worked so hard, we were able to benefit from many of the wonderful, you know, benefits that came from Montgomery County. Yeah, so happy to be here.
Thank you, Lori Ann. Anyone else?
And I'm sorry, hello, can you hear me? This is Linda Mercer Lee.
Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, you know what, I couldn't tap in. I'm in a grocery store, so I wasn't able to tap in at the very moment. I heard you, but I couldn't tap in. But anyhow, so I'm Linda Mercer Lee. I do have to agree with Skippy. I grew up in Linden, born and raised in Linden, left, I think maybe in 68, 69. Linden, all of the people in Linden, we were family. We all considered sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, whatever you want to call us. But I think I consider myself as family to everyone who lived in Linden. Glad I was there. I still love it. I'm just so sorry, like I said, that we don't see each other only unless there's a funeral. But I still live in Silver Spring, not in Linden, but no more than about 20 minutes away. And I'm so glad that you all have put this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I think if there's no one else, we will start. We have a presentation, and as the pictures come forth, I'll make a comment about that. And if anyone else that remembers something about that site that brings back memories of yesteryear, please feel free to speak. And after the presentation, we will have a question and answer session. So if we would hold all questions until the end of the presentation, that would be appreciated. Okay. As we said, Lyttonsville, really began in 1853. It was, I guess as we go along with the slides, let me just talk about it.
Kirk need to be in here watching.
Okay.
It's history.
Okay, it was founded before emancipation. As it says before, there was a linden, a woodside, or forest. There was Lyttonsville. The community began in 1853 when Leonard Johnson, a white landowner, gave a parcel of land to Samuel Lytton. And it says here that he was a freed slave for whom the community is named. Now that information is incorrect. We have found out as a result of research that he was a free laborer in the Blair household, and he bought land from the people who owned this. The land goes back as far as the 1600s, but it comes into existence as Lyttonsville. And you notice there's not an S on his name. In the research, it was called at first Lyttonville, but I'm not sure when the Y came in and the S came in, but officially it is Lyttonsville. This is a tiny little piece west, as I said, in West Silver Spring. We're off of East-West Highway, just off of 16th Street Extended. And we are in a really strategic spot. We are about 4 blocks from Bethesda, Chevy Chase. That's part of the area that's from us. Okay, next. And it's, as I said before, it's 68 acres. It was more than that before urban renewal. And I wish I could say how many acres it was before, but most of the housing was on Brookville Road. Okay, when the B&O Railroad was built in 1873, Charles M. Keyes platted a development called Linden of 32 acres with 20 residential lots on the east side of the tracks, the first railroad subway in Montgomery County. A railroad stop was created called Linden. Lyttonsville, however, remained on the west side of the tracks. With its proximity to the railroad stop, the whole area, including Lyttonsville, began to be called Linden. In fact, the first school in the community was named Linden School. And so the residents, former residents in our time there, we didn't know anything about the name Lyttonsville as kids. Everybody called that area Linden, and it got its name because of that railroad stop. And there was a community close by part of Linden. Here you see a map of the area, and you see Linden Station there at the very top. We're right next to Forest Glen and Sligo.
The PowerPoint is not showing. If Reverend Ella could reshare that.
Oh.
Somehow it went away.
Oh, it went away? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, we could replace it with you.
Like, I think you're looking at it on your own computer, but then she's the one showing it for the audience. Here we go.
Okay.
Coming back.
Okay. All right.
In the slideshow, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Ella, you can advance.
Slideshow, and then from whichever.
Yeah, we're down about six or seven slides, Ella.
If you go to the slides in the column on the left and just click on it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
That one, the
Okay.
map.
Okay. Then I see there's one, number five, slide number 5. I don't, is that number? Yeah, is that, okay, well, anyway,
And
with
it'll be bigger. It'll be bigger if, maybe if we click from beginning and then go back in.
yeah, because there are 2 slides before this one on the churches.
Okay, but yeah, we can just go through
Oh, you
beginning
know what,
from
I'm
beginning.
sorry, I'm wrong, I'm wrong. She can keep that. Go to the next slide.
But if you go from, yeah, there it is. So it's
Now,
bigger.
there we are. All right. There were 2 churches that served Lyttonsville. One was the Pilgrim Baptist Church, originally located on Brookfield Road in the heart of the community, now located at the corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and Lanier Drive. And Mount Zion Methodist Church, originally located at Georgia Avenue and Seminary Place, now located in Washington, D.C. as the Van Buren United Methodist Church. So if you know where that shopping center is off of Georgia Avenue, just before the Beltway, where the pizza parlor and CVS is, that was a much higher level area of land, and the church sat up on a hill, and it was freelance down 2 levels to the street. Beautiful church, beautiful wooden church. This is a picture of the Pilgrim Baptist Church located on Brookville Road at the corner of Garfield Avenue. It was built in 1892 on land belonging to Josiah Jones. The old church building was moved to Garfield Street in 1913, and a new church was built on the old grounds. The contractor for construction for the new church, completed in 1914, was Robert Brown of Washington, D.C. The land was sold in 1976 to the Montgomery County government in exchange for property on Pennsylvania Avenue at Lanier Drive, where the present church stands. The new church, let's go up just a little bit. Anyway, the new church sits there just across from Rosemary Hills Elementary School. And and these are pictures of the church when it was on Brookville Road. We see here many, many people that we remember from the past. And on the right-hand side are the Sunday school children. And I'm not sure if Staley Jackson is on yet. Pam Christian was supposed to be on tonight. She's there. And we have a number of the little ones that grew up there in the neighborhood. Pilgrim Baptist, they're the little Sunday school class. This is a picture of the Sunday school of Charlotte on the left. And I'm not sure if Tubby's on yet, or Staley, but all of these young men have grown up to be outstanding residents. This was her Sunday school class on the left. Do you want to say anything? And on the right, we have a Staley Jackson and a young man we call Tubby. Peggy, are you on tonight? No, I'm sorry, that wrong person. But anyway, Staley is on the right. He lives in the South. He's an outstanding doctor and surgeon. And on the left is a gentleman we call Tubby, fantastic person, and maybe he'll be able to join us later. All right, and Charlotte's in the middle. This is the Methodist Church. This is a Methodist Episcopal Church, and as you can see, The site was much higher, and it was originally a white church, and during the slavery time, they allowed the colored people to come in and sit in the back. But then they sold that church to the African American people when they moved their church to another area. And this church was connected with the other churches in the Washington, D.C. area. Tenleytown was the charge that they were connected with. It's called Mount Zion. A lot of good programs went on at Mount Zion and a lot of good activities. The picture on the left is a picture that was taken on Pennsylvania Avenue, just across from the church, when these are some of the ministers. The gospel choir, the Zionists, the gentleman, Mr. Young, owned a house, he and his wife, and they had a party, a Sunday party for the ministers and their wives. And that is who you see here. I might note that the gentleman sitting down in the very front in the middle was always a visitor and a guest minister at our church, Mount Zion. His church was in Virginia. And the two little girls sitting in front of him are the children of the lady on the extreme right and her husband, Reverend Williams. And the person next to Reverend Williams is my father, Lawrence Tyson. He wasn't a minister, but he was part of the gospel choir. And then you have Linda Lee was just on a few minutes ago. Her maiden name is Mercer, and that is her mother, standing in the middle. And you know what? I forgot something, but that's okay. The back row is next to Mrs. Mercer. Is they don't think he listed here. I knew this gentleman very well, and now his name escapes me. But then next to him is Ms. Evelyn Sewell, and next to her is Reverend Wilbert Young. Mr. Young was brought up in this neighborhood. He probably was born in this neighborhood. He and Mrs. Mercer in the middle are sister and brother. That was a large family. The Crutchfield family was a large family. The Young family, there were many large families in Lyttonsville. In front of Reverend Williams, Reverend Wilbert Young is his wife, Miss Ruby. And Reverend Carter is sitting next to her. Now, I told you about the guest minister, Reverend Preston, and beside him, the lady with the hat is his wife. They were often visitors at the church, but they were much loved. They were not assigned there, but they were much loved and a part of the ministry. And on the right was the gospel choir. Every African American church in Montgomery County and probably across the country had a gospel choir. And this one was named the Zionaires. And many of these people that you see came from Lyttonsville, but a few of them were from other areas such as Rockville. And they were very much a part of the ministry of the church. And the reason that many of them stayed so very, very long was because they were so grateful for the fact that the church had been so great to them. That was the place where they practiced. That was the place, the church that went on trips, and they went on to present their music, and they performed in Maryland, Washington, and Virginia. Next. This one on the left is the old Sunday school of Mount Zion. And that's the picture of the original church before it burned down. And the new church, the white church, is set up on the hill. This was the building. The right hand side are the children still of the it said of the Mount Zion Church, but that looks like the children from Pilgrim Baptist to me. So I think that's just a slide that should have gone with the other. Thank you. Next slide. All right, the schools, the educational part of the community. Linden, which was called the Linden School, that was in Lyttonsville, began in 1896 in the Pilgrim Baptist Church. It stayed in the old church building after a new church was built in 1914. A new two-room school was built in 1917, and the enrollment in 1939 for grades 1 through 7 was 74. The Linden School closed at the end of 1955 as a step in integration of the public schools, and students were bused to other schools. Rosemary Hills Elementary School opened in 1970, it says, but that is incorrect. Rosemary Hills School opened when the 54 decision of desegregating school with all deliberate speed opened in the around 1956, and a community school began after hours in the school building soon after. And that after school hours is one of the projects of Miss Gwendolyn Caulfield. She was there running that night school. This is a picture of the then two-room schoolhouse, the Linden School. And it had no running water. It was just like our homes, the outhouse. The boys would get the water for the school, and Charlotte told us from time to time that if a dog got after the boys, there was a spigot on Brookville Road. They would fill the buckets with that water, and then they would head back to the school. And if a dog got after them, by the time they finished shaking the buckets, they were almost empty. But that's where they got their water. And if Staley was on tonight, he said that there was another room also built in the school, so it eventually had 3 rooms. Okay, the small community has always been close-knit and had many social gatherings, such as backyard barbecues and picnics at the nearby Rock Creek Park. Many families have several generations who have lived here. The community had several stores and a beer garden called Ike's Blue Moon on Brookville Road. It also had a baseball field where Rosemary Hills Primary and Community School is located now. The community baseball team was known as the Linden Black Sox. Now, there they are, the Linden Black Sox. I have to say that because of segregation around the country, African Americans were proud people. They would not quit. Therefore, everything, they created all of the organizations, all of the entertainments, the projects in their churches, wherever. They built things for their life. And believe me, they were excellent. And here you see the baseball team, the Linden Black Sox. Of course, all of these men are gone. But you have some people there from the Young family, from the Stewart family, some of the Williams family, Albert Turner's from the Shackleford family. Um, these are all old family names, the Wilsons, all old family names. And you can see that these men, this is the area that they're standing in. I don't, that might have been the area where the school is today, Rosemary Hill School, because that's where they played their ball games, in that field. I think that field is called Anderson's Field. Okay, here's the community activities. And again, you see Charlotte, and her on the right-hand side is her sister Florence. And then there is another young lady lived in here named Allen. She's there. Yeah. And her name is Alma. And on the right-hand side is James Tracy and Shirley Askins. Now, James Tracy is very special here. We called him Mickey. I didn't know Miss Askins, Shirley Askins. But Mickey, for years, had a reunion of residents who had moved out of the area. And he knew how to contact everyone, more so than me. I didn't know where everyone is, and a lot of people have passed on, and he has passed on. Mickey's been gone now for probably about 5 years. But he was a well-known person, and everybody knew Mickey. And Mickey sang in both churches. He belonged to a group in the Baptist church, and he was a member of the Methodist church. His family, the Tracys, were members of the Methodist church. All right. Russell Williams, it said he gave motorcycle rides to the kids. Russell is still living. He lives in Washington, D.C. And his sister told me that he was still riding that motorcycle. And that man is definitely in his 80s. But he and the young men in the community had what was known as, they souped up their cars and made them hot rods. And but Bud had this motorcycle. On the left, we have again Charlotte, and she's there with Edward Evans and Russell Williams, the same. Russell Wilson. Well, that's the same. I'm sorry, Russell Wilson. Yeah, that's the same Russell on the motorcycle. So you can see that was in her day when she was a young little lady. And this is the children's playhouse in her family's backyard. And later it became a tiny beauty parlor where her sister that was standing there with her on that photo, she was a beautician. She became a beautician. This is Gwendolyn Caulfield. I told her that she had the after school program, and it opened in 1970. It was after hours in the school building. Many adults and teens attended these classes, and she even drafted me to teach a class because it was a class teaching English as well as history. And many of the adults in the classes were very appreciative of an opportunity, and there were a lot of people that came from the area off of 16th Street down near Irving Street area where the Latinos began to infiltrate that area. And so they wanted to learn English. And there were a lot of students, let me tell you, with very few of us as teachers. But we not only taught them, but we learned so much from them. And in 2000, the county built the rec center named after Gwen, we call it Gwen, to honor her. Next one. Now, when urban renewal came, there was a sense that we were going to lose the old houses, I have to tell you about this particular area. Linden was divided into names of 3 names. On Brookville Road, it was called Over on the Road. Where I live in the area here was known as Over in the Field. And that was because that field, when my grandparents moved in here, was really a field and a wilderness. And my grandmother said if your cows or some animal got in here and you didn't get them out before dark, you couldn't get them until the next day. So this really was a field, and people had farm animals and things that they had here. This little house it's over in the area off of Kansas Avenue, now the cul-de-sac, and where Friendly Garden is known as Over in the Field. And this was one of the last little houses to go. There were a number there, I think about 7 or 8 homes. And behind that is what you know today as Claridge House. So things were beginning to change, and there are 400 units in the Claridge House of people residents. 400 units, and a little farther over on Michigan Avenue, which is where Charlotte and I live today. This house on the left is perhaps the oldest house in the neighborhood. It has housed 2 or 3 different families. And the young man who lives there today, John Young, his father, they had 3, he and his wife had 3 boys. John is the youngest, the other 2 are deceased. Mr. Young was known to every kid in the neighborhood as Uncle Ed. His name was Edward Young, and he is also related to Linda Lee, and he's the brother of the lady I showed you at the garden party for the ministers, Mrs. Molly Mercer. She married and her name became Mercer. So this house still looks the same. If you pass it, it's still there, and he's made a few improvements in the driveway and some things in the house. But that's basically across the street from where the Shacklefords lived. And the Mrs. Shackleford was his sister. So on the right is Pennsylvania Avenue as you know it now. The area there with the garden is where the church sits, Pilgrim Baptist Church. And the house, not the greenhouse, the house next to it on the left is the house that was where the garden party was given for the ministers' wives. That house is still there. It's been modified in the top, and then the home on the right, the greenhouse, was Mickey's parents' house, the Tracys. His niece lives, and one brother still of the family. They both live in that house. These houses sat near the street, but in the back there's a lot of land, and Mickey used that land for every Sunday for a gathering of people in the neighborhood, and it was always a wonderful thing. And when Mickey passed on, we lost our little party territory place there. This is the Caulfield House on Michigan Avenue, and I would say that where Charlotte lives now is there was quite a bit of land there, so you have now the students, the houses built by the students as a cul-de-sac there, and then you have a house on the other side that belonged to Gwen Caulfield, and Charlotte's daughter lives in that house right now. And across from the area where Charlotte's daughter lives, That's just about across from Mr. and Mrs. Marshall, Ed and Anna, who introduced themselves tonight and talked about the Shackelford House. And so that house is still there, preserved. It's owned by a gentleman, Mr. Kwan, and I'm sorry he couldn't be with us tonight, but he's had it renovated. It has residents in it, and it was a beautiful old house when Mrs. Shackelford passed. And as you can see, it has a fireplace, a chimney on the right, beautiful floors, and it was a very lovely house on the inside. So let's go to the next slide. And I do believe Mr. Staley Jackson is on the line. And when we finish with the slides, I'm going to ask him to say something. Urban renewal came. For many years, the houses were substandard until in the 1960s, there was no running water or indoor plumbing in the homes. Water came from wells and nearby springs. There were no paved streets or streetlights except for Brookville Road. The community, led by Lawrence Tyson and Gwendolyn Caulfield, applied for urban renewal in 1967, and the county council approved the budget in 1968 and set up a project area committee called PAC. And in 1979 and 1980, old houses were torn down and new ones built. But many of the residents were many of the residents had to move, but some were able to stay. And those that stayed were able to move into the Friendly Garden Apartments. Those are three, and you see right there, 3 and 4 bedroom apartments for families. That was the Quakers, built by the Quakers. And here we have Mr. John Beers of the nonprofit organization Friends that built it, receives a plan for friendly gardens from Gwendolyn Caulfield. And this is this down below is the entrance to the Claridge House, which you saw the side of from the little house, the little frame house that we just saw previously. Okay. This again is a picture of the Caulfield house, the old one as it was being taken down, and this is the new one that Charlotte, where I am today, here with Charlotte in this house. And new houses began to pop up around the neighborhood. The plan by the county in this urban renewal project meant that every lot was to have a house on it. So therefore, that's why she has her house on it. Every piece of property that the Caulfields has each lot has a house on it. We had 3 lots down on Kansas Avenue with our grandparents' home, and there was also another house on it for a while. So, but there had to be a house on every lot. Many people had rented their homes before, but those homes, as we said, were substandard, and the landlord, Mr. Keys, who owned the Keys Coal Yard, was not willing to update them. Now this is a beautiful picture. I think Anna Marshall probably took this picture of the neighborhood some years back when we had Snowmageddon. And you can see these houses here. While Lyttonsville was originally a predominantly African-American community, there were several Caucasian families in the area as far back as many old-timers could remember. Today, the small area of Lyttonsville has a highly diverse population. Lyttonsville today is a beautiful, lively community, and to God we give the praise because he has guided and kept us intact as a neighborhood. We cherish all of our old neighbors and welcome all of the new ones. And this brings us to a close of the PowerPoint presentation. But I have to say that it was a close-knit community. Now, if Staley Jackson is on now, Staley, can you hear us? Could you unmute yourself? Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, Staley? Well, if he's able to do that a little bit later, we will have Staley with us. There were several other neighbors too. I'm not sure if they had a hard time getting on, but we at least got on, and happy to do this presentation. The streets in our community, as you notice, are named after states. There's Maine Avenue, there's Michigan Avenue, Kansas Avenue, and Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, I'm not sure about the other, there are two streets I'm certain of, that's Kansas Avenue and Michigan Avenue. Those two streets were bought by former senators. They were Senator Bishop Perkins, he was from the state of Kansas, and Julius C. Burroughs, he was from Michigan. And those two streets were named after them. So I'm not sure if after that the plan was to try to name the other streets after states. And whenever we say Michigan Avenue, people would think we were the Michigan Avenue in Northeast Washington. But we have our own Michigan, Pennsylvania, Maine, and there's one more, Maine, Pennsylvania, Michigan. That's it. I guess that's it, Maine Avenue. And so it's been a delightful community. We're so sorry to have lost all of the housing on Brookfield Road. Those were many houses, and that's where the beer garden was, Ike's Blue Moon. We've been hoping somebody can give us a picture of Ike's Blue Moon. Nobody seems to have had a picture, or if so, we just haven't found it yet. And there was a store that Mr. John had that where you could go in and buy little things and items. Basically, the community shopped at Snyder's, and Snyder also employed people from the community. Linda Lee's father lived there when he lived in the community. And the main employers of residents in the community were the seminary, which you know about, off of the area there of Forest Glen, and the coal yard, Keys, E.C. Keys coal yard, a major amount of people, and the old telephone, C&P Telephone Company on Georgia Avenue in Silver Spring. As you know, that building is still standing, and I was surprised to learn that my grandfather worked there, and I know my uncle did. So there were a lot of the Eaglins, a number of families that worked for the telephone company. So I think at this point, unless the former residents, Skippy, do you have anything you want to say about your time here? And then we will, are you there?
If you could unmute, Dwight.
Yeah, I am. WWDC is still over there in the community on Brookfield Road. The radio station.
Yes.
The tower.
Yeah, the towers.
You remember that? WWDC, the
Yes.
radio station? That's
Yes.
still there in Lyttonsville.
Yeah.
You have the Washington water line, they still on Brookfield Road.
The
And then
SSC.
then you had going over in the field, there used to be Bradley, Lumberyard used to be off on Brookfield Road behind the Mercy, all those buildings that used to be in Linden. Business back then when we were small, growing up, besides Keys Coal Yard, there were several business in Linden on Brookfield Road. I remember as a young child or young kid growing up, there was a place where they was working on stuff for the space shuttle. My grandfather, Wyndham Young, used to work there. He was a janitor, and that was right behind the Mercer them, right behind on the other side of Keys. My grandfather used to be the janitor there, and I remember as a young child, my grandfather, um, Mutt's father, uh, worked at Bliss School. I remember that he was a cook at Bliss School, and like I say, growing up in London, things like that I remember because it gave me the sense to go out and do better and to make the people in Linden proud of us young men growing up. You know, I do remember that
Right.
and the funds that we used to have as kids. And another thing I remember as a kid, like you were saying, we didn't have a place to go swimming. We went down to the trestle. It used to be called a trestle where the train used to run across the tracks. And people used to go over there, and that was our beach as kids. That's where we used to go swimming. And Nani Nelson and Nelson family, the Gaithers, everybody, every Sunday and Saturday, that's where we used to meet. They would cook, and we just, the kids had fun, and we swim, and everybody, and they played softball, baseball. That was something that I will never, ever will forget coming up in London, how we were as kids. They would always gather us and take us over there to swim and teach us, taught us how to swim and stuff. When we went to summer school and when they segregated schools and everything, when we went to Banneker and Francis swimming pools, we could swim. We know how to swim in DC. And a lot of people looked at us and say, them country boys, where they come from, they don't know nothing but swim. But we did. We jumped off the high tower. We jumped off the high tower into the deep water. They say, them little boys gonna drown. But we come right back up and started swimming. They say, look at them. They can swim. And like I say, everything I learned came from Brookville Road, from Linden, from my cousin Jim Nelson and Staley Jackson and Raymond Tyson, your cousin, all them guys, they taught us how to take care of ourselves and to be able to go out and just enjoy ourselves, you know, as young boys and to become to where we're at now, you know.
Thank you, Skippy. Where he's talking about Bliss School, I'm not sure if you're that familiar with the history of the area. That is now Montgomery College on Georgia Avenue. That was the old Bliss School.
Yes, that's Montgomery College.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's where my grandfather worked,
and
Jim Crutchfield.
yeah, and the stone building over on Brookfield Road was known as WWDC. The towers are still there. I believe it's
Yeah.
a lawn company or something that has it now. But
Yeah.
they that was quite a station, and Art Brown with his Canaries came on in the morning and sang. And when Leisure World was built,
Yeah.
Art Brown was one of the first. He and his wife were one of the first residents, and they would tell us all about what was going on at Leisure World. But
Well,
did you have something else, Skippy? Did you have something else?
it was. I remember as a kid growing up. I remember a big star came in our neighborhood was Pat Boone. Came to WWDC, came over there to the radio station, and he was putting out his song. And I never forget that. Man, everybody ran up there to the radio station to meet him, and he was signing autograph and everything. And wow, he had on his white bucks. You know,
That's something
that
I
was a
never
big
heard.
thing for us. You know,
Ah,
that was, I mean, that was a big thing. And then another thing I remember coming up in Linden, Brookville. You remember, as he said, WWDC, they had a strawberry patch, and we used to go up there and pick strawberries. As little kids, we used to go up there and pick strawberries. And at Forest Glen, we used to go up there and get apples and peaches off the trees as kids growing up. And like I say, those are good memories. And I will always hold them and treasure those memories of Lyttonsville.
thank you, thank you. I believe Staley is around, and also Lisa Martin. Can one of you unmute yourself? Lisa? Staley? Well, by the time they figure that out, let's see, we've got.
Sister has a comment. Teresa.
I just wanted to say that, you know, when I think about growing up in Linden, there are a lot of pleasant things that I remember, but when I talk to people and tell them that I grew up in Silver Spring, they say, "Oh, you did?" And I say, "Yes." And they say, "Well, that wasn't the country." And I'll say, "Well, the part I grew up in was the country. It's now the suburbs, but it was the country then." And the reason I say that is because I remember being a student at Blair High School before we had an indoor bathroom. And we did not have running water or street lights or paved streets. We would have the light of the moon at night when the moon was out. And so it was quite something. I was so happy when we finally got an indoor bathroom. And, you know, I well remember having to walk all the way out to Georgia Avenue, which was the closest bus line that we had for public transportation. So there were a lot of things. Now, when I know that Lyttonsville #2 bus comes through there, I know a lot of people are happy about that, because it seemed like when you're young, it seemed like a long way to get out to Georgia Avenue.
Right. Lisa, are you with us? If not, you know, you'll be able to work your way up, but I see Rob Boston, who's one of our new.
No.
Is she there?
Which other residents are you looking for?
Lisa Martin, Stanley Jackson.
Okay, so this is Lisa Martin with SSTCI talking. So
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Lisa.
Stanley Jackson, you said?
Yeah, Stanley Jackson.
Are other older residents here? We have such an attendance. I can bring them up on screen if they can unmute and just say hello. Oh, William Jackson?
Yeah. Tubby. That's Tubby.
William Jackson is Tubby. Hey, Tubby.
Yeah,
Oh, Tubby, that's Tubby.
Hi, Tubby.
You have to unmute. You have to unmute.
Yeah, his wife is working.
You're muted.
Okay, there. Oh, it just muted again. Oh, just unmute again.
Where did he go? Okay. Oh, there he is. Understandable for his age.
Tubby, we just showed your picture a couple of times.
Yeah, you're on the screen. If everyone can go to view and go to speaker view, you can see all the old residents all the featured speakers are highlighted.
Speaker view. Where is that?
Right to the bottom.
So Tubby, if you can unmute,
To show speaker
just
view.
click the button that says unmute.
On the far left side of your screen.
There's a grandkid. There's a teenager.
On the lower left. If you're looking at the screen on the
Can you hear
lower,
us?
good. You got it.
I'm on now.
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'm not good with this computer,
That's all right.
but I would like to say to everyone, belated Valentine's Day.
Same to you, William.
And I've been enjoying what everybody's been saying, and what everybody's been saying is absolutely correct, as I remember. I left Linden in 1959 as I was beginning senior high school. But I really never left because every chance I got, I was back in Linden. And for a few years, I came back to live with my Aunt Thelma Gaither when her husband, Jerry Gaither, died, and her two sons, Henry and Peter, was having problems. And I came back to stay with them. And I stayed in Linden again I left in 59, and I came back and I stayed until 1963. That's when I went in United States Navy. And to this day, at some time or another, I show up in Linden. And I guess I'll be doing that until the end of me. Most of the time it's at funerals, as Teresa and them said, and it's sad, but I reside now in Brandywine, Maryland, and getting up in this age, I don't mind driving out to go places, but I have a problem driving back home. So most of the time I'm in Southern Maryland, just recuperating and enjoying my grandchildren. But it is good to see everyone, and everyone is healthy. I was talking to Raymond Tyson earlier this afternoon, and he informed me that we lost another resident. Catherine's daughter, Lois, Miss Lizzie Askins' granddaughter.
Thank you.
And that's everybody said everything that I can remember, so I don't have nothing to add, unfortunately.
Thank you. His nickname, they called him Tubby.
Yes, when people started using my real name, William Jackson, it took me a while to get used to it because in Linden, that's the only name anybody knew, Tubby Jackson.
I just put it in your name there. You can see I added Tubby in your name.
Yeah, well.
How did you get the name Tubby?
I was 11-pound, 4-ounce baby.
Oh.
Big baby.
Wow.
And by the time I was 5, if I turned sideways, you wouldn't see me. But I still have people I run across up in Upper Montgomery County, haven't seen since we were back young childhood, and they ask me, tell me, what's your real name? And I'm almost 80 years old, and sometimes I have to still got to think about it. I say, oh, William Jackson. It's amazing how you can go through all the years before you finally find out somebody's real name, first name. Because back in Linden, especially at school, even the teachers called us by our nicknames.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Tubby. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hey, Pat, I had a question I want to ask you. Because from the slideshow, it brought back a lot of memories and clarified some things to me. Because I remember Mr. Shackelford telling me about this neighborhood used to be a room and board for soldiers. Mm-hmm. And I didn't hear you comment on that because I saw Ms. Cofield with a couple of soldiers and said, and another thing, I inherited one of those wells that you talked about. I used to wonder why the ground keeps sinking. And that's when George told me that, hey, there's a well. And another thing I want to say, I used to have gardens back here. This land is so fertile, and I understand because it used to be room and board. A lot of farm animals and so forth.
That's right.
Another thing, the military had a rich history here because of Walter Reed back here. Back here used to be the psychiatric ward. And I don't know if
Right.
you knew about that. And they had a rich, a girls' school back here also on that installation. So I didn't hear anything about
Yeah.
it. And I wondered
Yeah.
if you knew anything about that.
Okay, I'll say something, and then Tubby and some others who know about it. Um, the community in those days, back in the 40s and the 50s and even the 60s, had lots of fruit trees and gardens.
Yeah.
You know, it was just,
Mhm.
we had a garden. My mother came from, had lived in the city, but there, as you say, the the dirt was black.
Fertile.
It
Yes.
would grow anything,
Anything. Yes.
anything. And
Mm.
so, you know, they're filled in a lot, you know, with the brown dirt and everything now. But my mother, she was not a country person for a garden, but she was excited about it, and she went out and planted all the things, you know. And Teresa and I would go out and help her, you know, take them all in. But it was common to have apple trees at the corner of Pennsylvania and Kansas. Stewart Lane that runs off of, it's closed now, runs off of Michigan. My grandparents had apple trees there and grape arbor and pear trees. I mean, it was just a fruitful neighborhood where you could grow your own things, share them with your neighbors, and you would hope the children wouldn't climb up in the trees and break the limbs. But other than that, you know, it was there was fruit all around, and so you know, we even had
Thank you for this.
yeah, we even had walnuts.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for the slideshow. I tell you, it was so informative because
yeah,
I met a lot of those guys like Dookie and Albert and, you
Yeah.
know, a lot of them.
yes,
So that brought back some memories.
yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Honorable young men who didn't make a lot of fuss.
Yeah.
You know, they had been in the military. When they had leave, they would come home. They were very honored. So decent. You know, I'm gonna let Rob say something in a minute, but and Skippy might, or someone might have something to add. But today's problems, everybody says throw some money into it. That'll get rid of it, the problem. That because these kids need jobs, they need this, they need that. They are no longer functioning as young people protected by their families. We were. We had
Yeah.
no opportunity to work until we got out of school.
Mm.
And we felt protected because our parents were living in a situation, which we found out later when we became grown, where they had to survive, and they did. But don't think that on a Sunday morning, people walked around in rags or anything else. They dressed up, even if they weren't going to church. They were dressed
Nice.
for respect, okay? And they also created, you know, things and clubs and things like that, and joined organizations like the Masons and the Elks and things like that. They were about business because they
Yeah.
wanted, they knew, I mean, as a kid, I can remember the only light I would see at the night when I was out on the front porch was the light from a cigarette.
Mm.
And now you'd think that that wouldn't happen, but that's how dark it was, you know, and in the neighborhood. But for us that were there, we were always taught to have a sense of respect for other people, their property. And then one day we had ours, we'd know how to take care of it. So,
Yeah.
did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Some of the other, Lori, were you going to say something?
Well, I was
Yeah,
just
go.
wondering if somebody could speak to the soldiers home and the girls seminary school, because those were very significant, you know, institutions in the neighborhood. Many of our parents and ancestors, you know, worked there. If anybody, you know, from this generation can talk to that, I think it'd be good information for everyone.
Well, I can say from my family that my grandmother did laundry from the seminary. And she would bring, stuff home and wash it for various families. But I'm not sure. I think she might have also probably worked a little bit at the seminary. The seminary was one of the most cultured, famous girls' school in the country.
Yes.
Jesus.
People from all over the world would come to the seminary. And I understand that when the train came, it would more or less back in, but you know, and whatever. But it was so exclusive that it had a certain way it had to come in and go back out. So that the nothing but the rich went there. Nothing but the rich. And I was talking to Anna today. When I was talking to Anna today about the palatial ballroom they had and the magnificent things that they had on that property. I was too young to know about any of those things or to ever experience them. But they employed some people from the community. And I'm sure everything, you know, janitorial service, laundry service, cooks, they're probably all, because it was a very large place, and a very exclusive place. Okay.
Yeah, and some of our ancestors, you know, our mothers and as such, actually worked for some of the generals' wives, and you know, and worked in that school. And so, you know, it provided, you know, a means of employment. You know, some of the families actually got clothing from those wives. There were dances. I mean, my mom used to always talk about how they would have dances and dance contests, and you know, just had a wonderful time. And you know, a lot of the gowns and stuff came from some of the generals' wives even. So I don't know a whole lot. I came in the 60s, but I do remember the stories that my mom told me.
Now, Charlotte one Sunday afternoon took me on a ride through that area because I was not familiar with it, and I didn't know anything about it. And she showed me a house that was inhabited by a black man and his family. He was the postmaster there. Back in those days, that was a long time ago, and the house is still there.
Pat, someone asked a question in the chat about did the children and the kids interact with children in other communities? The answer is yes. Further back in the day, there were pockets of Black enclaves in Montgomery County. There was Emory Grove, there was Ken Guard, there was Lincoln Park. It was quite a bit of them. So we associated with the different communities playing ball together, as well as attending church events and with having parties.
You're too young, Ella, but is there anybody that could address where the rec center is where there was camp of soldiers?
Yeah, it used to be a fort. I mean, where the soldiers used to stay right there where Friendly Garden is, where the wreck is. There used to be a base where the soldiers used to live. We used to call it Pork Chop Hill. Tubby and all of us, we used to call ourselves a war against the field. We would fight the field, and we would fight them over there, right there where the army base used to be over there, and we call that Pork Chop Hill. And then they changed it from that, and they were building the houses. That's why they got rid of the dump, because they was building them houses over there. by Friendly Garden, those houses that when you come up to Friendly Garden off Grub Road, East West Highway, all that over there, they built them homes in those apartments. But before they built all that, that used to be the woods. And before the woods, they used to have what they call a veteran house.
Yeah.
And my father, them used to live there. And I don't know if it was for the men that came home from the military or what, but it used to be a white building and trimmed in green. And Tubby know about this, you know. I don't know why he's sitting back like he didn't know. But yeah, we grew up in that community, and that was part of our growing up, knowing the Army had a base over there, and then my father and them lived over there. And when they was getting ready to build them homes in those apartments over there, they got rid of all that and cleared it out and started building over there. And that's when they got the community over there by Grub Road and East West Highway. That's when that community got built up, because it used to be all woods and stuff. And going down the tracks down to 16th Street, there used to be a horse stable. I don't know if people remember that. There used to be horses down there. And what's his name? Dookie William used to work down there. Used to him and Sterling, they used to work down at the stable with the horses, and they used to clean them and everything. We used to go down there with them, and they used to let us ride the horses. And I, like I say, I remember all that good stuff that brought us as we was kids. You know, we want to play cowboys, we want to ride a horse. That's how we got to do all that stuff. Yeah, it was country, and it was, you know, no bathrooms, you know, outhouse and all that stuff, but we survived. That's how we survived. And that's why we are who we are. That's why we are who we are today, because of that. And I don't think that we can take the kids nowadays and put them back to where we were, because I don't think they could survive it. Because we came up, it was rough. And just like Ella said, when they segregated schools, Tubby and I, when we went to Woodland, we met Dick Foster, a whole lot of other guys, Reds and all them. We started playing ball with them. And Sylvester Sloan, we met him, known as Rocket. We met him in elementary school. We played with them guys, and they was part of us, you know, and they knowed us, and not to my knowledge that they ever got out of the way with us and call us out of our name. And I don't know if it was because of the fear or thinking that we wasn't going to take up for ourselves or back each other up, but they gave us respect and we respected them. You know, yes, there was some racist slurs and things, but they never came out the way that we have it now, more now than I knew back then. I was more protected, I guess I can say, by my parents, you know, and
Thank you.
Tubby can, you know, back me up with that.
Pat, we certainly want to hear from some of our representatives who are here sharing with us. Senator Walsh.
Right.
Well, hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jeff Waldstreicher, and it's my privilege to serve as the state senator representing Lyttonsville and surrounding areas. I'll be brief. Let me start by thanking Pat and Charlotte. This has been an amazing presentation this evening. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Charlotte. You know, I have this schmancy title of senator, but you guys have a title that's even more important in our community, and that is the title of matriarch. So thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Pat, for what you have done tonight and what you continue to do for our community. You know, I don't have 70 years of history, but I have represented this area for 16 years. And actually, my father grew up not far from Lyttonsville. We're a Jewish family, and he tells me some fascinating stories about the relationship between the Jewish families and the African-American families, both of whom were excluded from large swaths of Montgomery County at the time. We've learned so much history tonight, and let me just make a pledge to you. As a state official, you have every resource of state government available to you to help you preserve this history, to help you honor this history. I will make sure those resources are available to Lyttonsville. You know, African-American history is all our history. Lyttonsville's history is all our history. Your history is our history, and you have my word that I'll fight to preserve it. Thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you so much, Senator Waldstreicher. And I would just ask that if you'd like to, we have so many questions and comments in the chat, and we'd rather hear them from you directly. So if you could just use the hand raise.
And just before we take on a question, there's a resident, Rob Boston, who's with us. Rob, you want to greet us?
Thank you, Pat. Yes, absolutely. This has been a great presentation. My family has only lived in the neighborhood for 22 years, so we're still newcomers. But I want to just say that when we were looking for a home, all we knew about Lyttonsville was that it was inside the Beltway, that it was convenient, that it had good schools. We didn't know the amazing history, and we didn't know the friendly neighbors and the people who would welcome us so strongly. Lyttonsville is very special because it's the kind of place where people look out for one another, watch over one another, and care for one another. And we are so happy to be just even a little piece of the story of Lyttonsville. So thank you, Pat, for this amazing history, and thank all of you residents who have been here so much longer than I and my family have been to share the story of this very special community. It means a lot.
I have to say that Rob and Carol, when their children were very young, I got to know them because they apparently knew that I wasn't much at lifting the shovel when it snowed. And boy, that whole family would come over and dig me out when it snowed. I never had to worry. And even today, with the kids gone and grown and everything, here comes Rob and Carol. When a snowstorm comes, they're right there cleaning out my driveway. And I'm so grateful to them. They are such a special, special couple. I hope they never leave.
Couple that have just raised their hand.
Teresa.
Joel and Maya Teitelbaum have a question or comment. Hi, Joel and Maya.
I have to say, while they're...
You just accidentally muted. Just go ahead and unmute again.
Rosemary Hills has always been a wonderful neighbor to
Okay. I'm Maya Teitelbaum, Joel's wife, and originally I'm from Switzerland. However, I'm married to Joel for 54 years. 54 years. And we live here in our Rosemary Hill, Lyttonsville area for 44 years. And I met Charlotte's sister when she was in the community school, and I was teaching after school French at Rosemary Hill School, and she was the coordinator. And I started the French after school kindergarten and Spanish school after school. And also I remember Gwendolyn Caulfield, when we used to go to vote at the school, she always made this special soup. Can you all remember that?
Yes.
She was always, and then we gave donations. On the way out, she was sitting there making her soup. That was my introduction to her. And then later I met Charlotte at the community center. And when we came to this neighborhood, we went through 3 community, the community centers. And when we came, it was just like a little shack. And Katie, she was our exercise teacher. She lived in Friendly Gardens. And that's how we came. And our children grew up here. And they made, my son was playing with the children in Paddington Square. So we were a very integrated neighborhood. And I got to know Charlotte through the community center. All the people I'm seeing here, and Dr. Redfield, I came with Charlotte to listen to you when you wrote your book. And so I feel very attached to this neighborhood.
This is Joel, and I agree. And a shout out to Anna and Ed Marshall. Sergeant Marshall was my first sergeant at the Rare on the then Walter Reed Annex campus. And to this day, I remember you guys, and I used to be afraid of Sergeant Marshall. He was so military.
That's great.
One more thing to say, Pat Tyson, she used to take us around, and we went to visit Mrs. Brinkley, and I have a big connection to the Black ladies in this neighborhood. And Pat, she comes and brings things all the time, and she takes care of people. And Charlotte, she took us with around also to her daughter's place in Baltimore. So I ran around with these ladies all over the place.
Thank you guys very much. We just want to appreciate you so much for giving us this true history of Lyttonsville. And by the way, we now call all of our neighborhoods Greater Lyttonsville.
Yeah.
This is the real, this is the expansion of the real Lyttonsville. Thank you.
Great. Great. And I see Teresa has her hand raised. And for
Yes.
others who want to get a question or comment in, please click the reaction and then raise hand so we know you want to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I saw a little while ago, there was a brief history put up about the bridge, and the bridge was very key to our community. And I think it'd be good if you could just share a brief summary or something, a little bit about that.
Oh, okay. Yes. Built in 1918, it was B&O Railroad, and of course, most of your Black neighborhoods across the country, in those days, they would say, if you want to find them, just look on the other side of the railroad track. And I think the planning department told me that wasn't true, but for the African-American community, that's where they felt like they could always find folks. And so this bridge now, like the area that we live in, we celebrated its 100th birthday because it is between Lyttonsville and Woodside. And when we found out that they liked the bridge as much as we did, and they didn't want to see the bridge taken down, that was news to us, because before it had not only been an eyesore that we thought to them, but also we thought that the residents there did not want to be connected in any way with our community. But all of the old folks have passed on. There is a new generation over there that is absolutely fantastic. And in this celebration, in fact, someone, Anna or someone may want to say something about it. The president of their association, at the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the bridge, read for us covenants that were used in white neighborhoods around the country. It wasn't the only one. Many others were that didn't want Black people in their neighborhood. And he read to us the covenants that were created just to keep certain people out. And I think this one had to do with your blood pressure and something else that was absolutely ridiculous. But we never knew it as the Talbot Avenue Bridge on Talbot Avenue. we always knew it as just the bridge. And when people moved away from here, if they saw you and they talked to you for a while, they say, hey, is the bridge still there? How's the bridge? Because it connected us to downtown Silver Spring. It was always a place of conversation for many residents up on the bridge, and they could watch a lot of things from the bridge. But it has been removed now for the Purple Line's purpose to come through there. And as such, it was, we were told that they were just going to take a ball and knock it down. And thinking back, we thought, how could they take a ball and knock down a structure over the railroad track? So we kind of put out a feeler to people, the Historical Society of Silver Spring and some of the other organizations and the Congress people. And we wanted to know if when it was disassembled, could it be saved so that it would be mounted again when the Purple Line is sort of finished with our area. And so we didn't know what to do and where to go. And we had a delegate, Jared Solomon, who took note of the letter. And he started to work with us to connect us with the Historic Preservation Officer of the Department of Transportation, Dr. Shemlitsky. You may have seen her on TV. But through his helping us and his contact, the bridge now has been dismantled, and it's over off of Brookfield Road in the area there where the lots of things are stored near the ride-on area. And so we await the opportunity to reassemble part of it again on the Crescent Trail, with signage on it that two neighborhoods, one white, one black, were brought together through this old bridge that rumbled and made noises, and we could hear it all over our neighborhoods when we were kids. And you knew people were coming in the neighborhood, and so it was a symbol to the neighborhood of another piece of our life as residents. And then it has become a connective piece of jewelry, if you might say, that has connected us with the other side of the track. And I see Anna White here, who, bless her heart, she is so organized. She organized that celebration, the 100th anniversary. And I don't know how in the world. She was on the program committee, and the program committee did a fantastic job. And so we as residents just sort of did whatever we needed to do to help out. But them on the other side of the track, they became a jewel. They really did, and are today people who fight segregation and everything else that divides people. We don't need to be divided today. There's no sense in that. And so when she's able to say something, I wish she would just say something about that experience.
Pat, before we leave,
I guess I'm not muted, right? Well, I just wanted to thank Pat and Charlotte, because it's really due to their leadership that our communities have joined together, and particularly moving forward in the future. And I see a number of faces I recognize on the screen who've been involved in the Talbot Avenue Bridge Lantern Walk in previous years. And I just wanted to say a few words about that the century birthday of the old historic bridge was 2018, I guess it was. And sadly, the historic bridge was demolished in 2019. And since then, we have not had a bridge to cross. And then, of course, as many people know, the Purple Line has been delayed further and further. So we're still waiting for a new bridge. The new bridge is half built. But since the 100th birthday of the historic bridge, we have been organizing each year a lantern walk in November. And this past year, we just had the 4th one. But both last year and this year, we have not been able to literally cross the bridge. We are symbolically bridging the two sides by walking from one side to the other. And normally it would just be, I don't know, 50 feet, but to walk from one side to the other nowadays, it's literally a mile from one side to the other, because you have to go through North Woodside, cross over another bridge, and come through Lyttonsville. So I just wanted to invite everyone in this meeting to join us November of this year for the next Talbot Avenue Bridge Lantern Walk. And if there are any public officials who are still on, I'd be very curious to know if there's any updates on what the status of the continued construction and completion of the Talbot Avenue Bridge.
We have Delegate Solomon here, and perhaps I think he had his hand up that he wanted to say something.
There we go. Thank you, Reverend. Yeah, I apologize. I was on toddler duty and bedtime for my wife, so had been on my phone. But I first off just want to echo the comments of Senator Waldstreicher. You know, it's such a pleasure to get to represent this community and to work with Pat. You know, in Charlotte, and honestly getting to play a small role in making the connections to help preserve the bridge, frankly, is one of the most special things that I've done in the few years that I've been in the House of Delegates. So I'm just thank you for the kind words. Yeah, in terms of the purple line, you know, I think we've all shared the frustration of you know, really what has been a tremendous level of mismanagement at multiple different levels. You know, on the positive note, the state has finally signed on with a new contractor, and I think many of you participated in the walkthrough that we had. I guess it was last year when it was a little warmer out with MTA and the new folks who are overseeing things. And the commitment that we have gotten is that as soon as the new contractor officially begins work, they are going to, as rapidly as possible, finish construction of the new bridge. So some of you may be familiar, they cannot close the bridge over Spring Street, which is another really important connector and the Purple Line construction puzzle until the Talbot Avenue Bridge is reopened. So there is quite an incentive for the new contractor to finish the bridge as quickly as possible. Every single time I talk to folks who are overseeing the project, I reemphasize to them how important it is that we finish this. You know, it's just been, again, really unfortunate that the project, frankly, from top to bottom has been mismanaged. You know, the previous contractor walked off the job, and it took the state, you know, 6 to 8 months just to settle with them, and then another 6 months to get a new contractor on board. So, you know, it's I live right up the road in Rock Creek Forest and share the community's concerns and frustrations, and we're you know, we're hopeful that later this spring the construction is going to start again and they will finish the bridge as quickly as possible. But I think most of you know how to find me. I'll drop my email in the chat as well for anybody who wants a more specific update. But thank you again for this. This community just has such an incredibly rich history, and it's really amazing to get to represent it. And thank you for putting on this program. Appreciate the opportunity to say a couple of words.
Thank you, Delegate Solomon. Do we have, I know other people wrote questions in the chat. If you were interested in asking your question, just go ahead and start talking and I'll highlight you. I know that Michelle was asking what about the origin of the name from Lyttonsville with an Litton, Lyttonville to Lyttonsville with a Y. Can someone answer Michelle's question about that?
I have to say, all of the information that we have, we don't know how that happened, but we know it's on the map as such, and we know that the county spelled it Litton, Ville. Now, when it got changed, we haven't uncovered that research yet, but Samuel Lytton's name apparently was spelled Litton. So that's one of those things that we're going to have to address and find out about that history. And when the old residents, I contacted them, or whenever you see them, they say, you know, it was called Linden. And it was because of that train stop that was talked about. There it is again. There's Litton with no S and Ville. So we don't know how that happened, but it did.
And Pat, I think the when we were reviewing some of the historical documents together, we came across the very first name when it was founded as Butler's Park. Is that correct?
You know, I can't remember. It could have been, but there's not very much reference to it. I think there is a reference in one of the historical documents, but there again, David Rotenstein was a tremendous historian when he came to the area, and he dug up quite a bit of history on this neighborhood. Now, this neighborhood is going to be on the heritage signs, Montgomery County heritage signs that will be going up in about 25 different African American neighborhoods. Right now, we have a difference of opinion with the people that are in charge of putting them up. But we do, this will be one of the neighborhoods that will have a sign and will have the story on it. And, you know, it's been a wonderful experience, but it's been a tough one. Only the tough endure on their knees. I have to say that because we were slated to be out of this neighborhood so many times and with so many projects, but we're still here. So we hope that the young people that have been brought up in this neighborhood will feel like we do as children when we grew up here, that it's a strategic place, all right, because it's just a minute's throw from DC and 30 seconds from Bethesda, Chevy Chase.
We have time for a couple more questions or comments. If someone would like to just raise their hand and ask. And while we're waiting to see from other folks who want to jump in now, I'm wondering, back in the day, as you were talking about back in the day, maybe in the 50s or so, when many of you were even younger than you are, you mentioned, you know, the unique nature of the community. How did the community stand out? How did other communities perceive Lyttonsville? How did it compare to other? How did it feel different to you?
Well, I think that it was very similar to most Black neighborhoods in Montgomery County. The thing that connected us was the church. There were Sunday afternoon programs in all the churches. There was just a thing where, you know, my dad and his day would go up to Rockville, and sometimes they'd come down here. They created things that would bring them together. And then when it came time for elections, they looked to see who was listening to them in order to vote for the right people that they felt would hear from them. In 1947, I have a copy of a report that my father had. The Black men created an improvement club for Montgomery County. And the point that they wanted to say was, hey, we're not asking for integration. We're just asking for what is equal to other communities. You don't have to do anything for us. Just give us the resources. We'll create it. We'll make things right in our neighborhoods. Because, for example, there was only one high school, Carver High School in those days. And in order to get there, just imagine in the county, one high school, broken down buses. The buses wouldn't get there until lunchtime because the buses would break down. You know, they were saying, hey, our kids need an education. We get books with pages torn out of them. We you know, what's left over from the white kids. So please, just give us an opportunity. But they didn't listen. They just came in, and when it was dusty, put a little oil on the rocks or the things, or when it rained, they'd bring in, if it made a hole, they'd come in and fill it up. They didn't care. And so all of these communities were kind of joined together in great worships together because they knew God was on their side if nobody else.
That's great. Any ideas from other panelists on that?
Well, I can just speak a little bit to, I'm sure every family here has some association with this, but, I can just recall, of course, I was born in the 60s, 62, but I recall, like my cousins being some of the first in the neighborhood to attend, now integrated schools and talking about, what that felt like. I had one of my cousins, Stacia, was like the first Black individual to attend like Bethesda Chevy Chase, because by this time, lines were being redrawn. And so, everybody started going to the schools, integration had come. But our families were some of the first Blacks to attend some of these schools that were, outside the exterior perimeters of our neighborhood. And, and so it was very, very, very different. Friendly Gardens, when Friendly Gardens was built, my mom and our family was one of the first families that moved up the street, maybe just a mile and a half. And because of that, we were sent to other schools, and the schools where many Blacks from the neighborhood did not really attend. So at a young age, we were getting, exposure to this. And so, for me, some people may not think about this, but even in the 70s, 70s, early 70s to mid 70s, we were still experiencing moments of racism and discrimination, even at those times, because neighborhoods just were not exposed to integration and being around one another. So even as late as the 70s, we were experiencing that. Yeah.
And I have to say that my sister and I went to Montgomery Hills because it was, we had been educated in the DC school system, but things were opening up now so that everybody could live where they wanted to and do what they wanted to. But I am still in touch with someone that was in my home room at Montgomery Hills Junior High. We correspond, we talk on the phone. It was getting to mingle with the white kids and to talk with them and to do different things. It's absolutely was a great experience for many of us. And then in high school, and it was just great. I have to say I learned so much. But the one thing that's missing today, I feel is the major thing, is manners. We were not allowed to call an adult Mary or Susan or something like that. It was Miss Susie, Miss Daisy. Till Miss Daisy Shackelford passed away, I called her Miss Daisy. And that's what we were supposed to do, because we were supposed to respect older people who we felt were wiser than we are. Now the children are teaching the older adults, apparently who've lost their minds. I don't know what is wrong with them. But the sense of respect, for people is gone. And I don't know that we'll ever get it back or how it will come back. But I feel so sorry for our young people, our next generation of leaders, because they keep reaching out for something and trying to hold on to it, and it disappears. And they're bored in school. And people can tell me that they're not, but I've been in enough of them here lately to see. They're bored. They don't know what it is missing, but something's missing from their lives. And I just really pray that our nation somehow we would turn around and see what the problem is. Because we had nothing. We had nothing, but we did have each other. And we knew we were loved.
Well, that's great. I think if you go back to maybe the 50s, some of the older folks might have been making the same speech about the younger generation. Right? We always complain about the younger, and I'm now complaining about younger kids too, but yeah, so
Lisa, I have to say that you are definitely right. They couldn't understand music, Motown, but they eventually got used to it and started. My father started collecting more Motown stuff than I did. But you're right. Every generation has its own thing. But I'll tell you one thing: you better had behaved, or it was bad news when you went home. If your teacher called your parent, or somebody in the neighborhood saw you doing something wrong, they'd call your parent. And
right,
they would help you get on the right track.
right. Well, I see it worked because you guys all turned out to be fine individuals and, proud community members, whether you still live there or not. How do you call yourselves Lytton's villager?
No, we just
Lytton?
favorite resident.
Someone from Lyttonsville.
Lyttonsville, you know. I
Right.
wish Staley Jackson, if he's not on, I'm sorry you didn't get to hear from Staley, because he's been away from the neighborhood so very, very long. And Montgomery Blair, Silver Chips, did a special on him. He graduated from Howard University, and I remember hearing him say that he had never been anywhere growing up as a kid. He had never crossed the district line until it was time to go to college. I mean, he went to Blair, and of course we had the stars in our neighborhood, the guys who were on the sports teams. But he decided he was going to be smart, and he was going to make something of himself. And I mean, he has really done it, because well, I can't speak for him. I can just say that he has a story to tell, and it's a wonderful story. Like all of the people that you hear from here today, they've made it. As Skippy said, we made it, and it didn't hurt. We weren't upset that we didn't have what other people had. We were upset if we did something wrong. We were upset then, but other than that, we went along with the program. And we had a life as a child. We had a life as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a difference. And technology is wonderful. I applaud all we have today. But somehow we've lost the communication and the skills that we should have. That creative skills that make things more, as Rob and them were saying, and Anna and Ed, it's a communication. It's a communication between people here in the community. And I'm sorry you didn't get to meet more of the people here from other nations, because they've shared with me their stories of how they got here with very little money, and how they survived, and they're still here and doing great, and their kids have grown up and moved on. So we're thankful. We're very, very thankful. And Silver Spring Town Center, Lisa, we thank you so very much for allowing us.
Thank you.
to tell this story. Because we go in a lot of meetings where people say, you know, Lyttonsville, they don't know anything about us or our past. And most times they even get our name mixed up with Lyttonsville. But
And it's totally different.
yeah, it is.
That's country now, right?
We pray that as we've gone on, that others will see, will keep the neighborhood. It's not so much of what you see here as what you feel here, and what you feel here, and what you want to know to be true.
Well, you guys definitely have some kind of magic sauce that makes it such a beloved place. So I think we're still tapping into the magic and understanding what makes it the way it is.
National
Just
Night
the
Out.
people, really. Yeah.
National Night Out. I want to put a plug in for National Night Out, which Pat conducts every year.
Right. In August, right?
Yes.
It brings children from all the communities in the area, and they have so much fun. Our beloved community center, which is now not functional for us, but the kids come and they play in the background, and they do tennis, and they get Rita's, the nice cones and ice cream.
Right.
The tremendous, they get hot dogs, and they play like kids, the kids that Mr. Skippy speak about. They just play like kids do, you know? So we'd love to get our community center back so we can meet there. We used to have a women's gathering. I think it was every Tuesday, and we would have teas in there and a lot of lovely functions. We would go downtown. They would have a bus to take the women on trips. We just miss our community center, and I'd like to put a plug in for that as well.
And Jane is asking in the chat, how can we help you get the community center back?
Well, you know what? If Jane will send us their your email or get in touch with us, and someone get in touch with my email or maybe yours. There's going to be a meeting on we had one in early January. This will be the second one with the recreation department, and they're going to tell us again. They had told us we would be in there by May, but I don't know if that's still the same thing or it'll be pushed back even a little bit farther. But we're going to find out exactly when we meet in it's 2 days from now, I believe. We'd love to let you know about that, and you can get online. It's a virtual meeting, and you can certainly get online.
And Robin Riley says it's this Thursday, and yes, May is still our plan.
Hey, Robin. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, Pat. Hey, Pat.
Hi there, Robin. So would you encourage folks to attend that meeting as well?
Absolutely. I'll be happy to put my email address in the chat. And if people want to get the Zoom link, I'll share it. It's Thursday night. It's at 6:30. And we'll update you on what the DGS plans and Health and Human Service plan to move the homeless residents out and get us back in there, hopefully sometime in May.
Ooh, good news.
For me too, trust me. I'll put my email address in the chat.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have to say that that center has really brought people together from various neighborhoods and various programs. And I saw Abe Shuckman on, I don't know if he's still on or not, but he's also one of the communities that we work with on projects to help make the community better. I mean, Rosemary Hills, who's always been with us, they helped us strategize for a number of things that helped us to stay there as the neighborhood. Rosemary Hills, Rock Creek Forest, and Woodside. So, you know, we are joined together. We work together, and we love it.
Great. And I see Abe Shuckman is here. You mentioned him. but his video is off. Anyway, I think we're going a little over our time. We could talk for a long time about this, and I think we're going to have to invite the community back for another, part 2, because you've got so much wonderful treasured memories, and it's really, Lyttonsville is really a treasured community, and that was our kind of buzzword for SSTCI this month, inspired by Lyttonsville. So we usually have a theme in our newsletter and in some of our programming. So a community treasure is what it is. So thank you so much to William Tubby Jackson Sr., Reverend Dr. Ella Redfield, Teresa Tyson Saxton, Lori Ann Fraser Doherty, Dwight Skippy Crutchfield, Eddie and Anna Marshall,
Correct.
Charlotte Cofield.
Yeah.
and Pat Tyson, the 2 matriarchs of Lyttonsville, our treasured community. Thanks to see you for more. We hope to